Welcome to Ahead of the Game, a podcast brought to you by the Digital Marketing Institute. I'm your host, Will Francis, and today we're talking to Heather O'Shea, Chief Research Officer of boutique market research consultancy Alter Agents, where she oversees research functions within the company. And there they work with brands, lots of brands you've heard of, like Netflix, Walmart, Gatorade, Spotify, and many more, to address tough business challenges. And I'm going to ask Heather all about how we make best use of insights in marketing today. Heather, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Hello, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, this is obviously a really high value topic to talk about. So it's going to be my job to learn as much as possible from you in the time that we've got with you. Before we get into it, just tell us a bit about what you actually do as a Chief Research Officer.
Okay. Well, I oversee the research team. We're a company of about 25 people, and 20 of those people are researchers. So we're quite focused on, the projects that we're doing with our clients. We execute that from start to finish. And I am helping to guide the team on the execution of these research projects. So on a day-to-day basis, I could be, maybe I could spend my morning reviewing a report that is looking at, how do brands best partner with creators in order to
Mm,
drive relevancy amongst an audience. My afternoon could be spent developing a research program for a CPG company or consumer product good company that wants to understand what's the best combination of colors and packaging at shelf.
wow, right.
Maybe later in my day I'm giving like a feedback on an analysis plan for a study where we're understanding people's traveling preferences. So it's really, really dynamic and every day looks a little
Wow.
bit different, but I love that. It's, makes it really fun.
You must learn obviously a lot about marketing, but you must learn a lot about people.
Yeah. That's what I like about it is that what I've I'm 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 definitely a person who likes to observe and likes to go a little bit deeper into people's motivations. Why do they talk, might say something a certain way or make a decision. And, there's plenty of work out there from
Mm,
behavioral economists that have shown that people are pretty irrational in their decision making. So I always want to
yeah.
understand why.
Yeah, I think it's the same sort of thing that draws us to things like Freakonomics, right? It's that kind of
Exactly.
interesting quirks, wrinkles in humanity, and often unexpected ones, and it's really exciting to uncover those, isn't it? But what's the exact problem your typical client comes to you with, just out of interest?
Oh, that's a good question. It really depends. What we tell our clients is what's keeping you up at night? What are your
Mm,
toughest business challenges? Those are the ones to bring to us because we like to, we like to be challenged with that. But I would say that, some of the bigger topics that we're hearing are trying to understand what premium means to
mm,
consumers or to people and how they're kind of making trade-offs based on that perception of premiumness. And definitely
yeah.
now, particularly in the US, but we're seeing globally, um, some of the macroeconomic challenges. Now we're hearing a little bit more about value. What does value mean? Kind of the other side of premium. And
Interesting.
uh, with social being such an algorithms being such a big part of the way that people entertain themselves, it's becoming a method for people to also educate themselves and make decisions about products. So we're getting a
Mm,
lot of questions from every kind of angle about what are the ways in which people are influenced by video, whether it be social video, creator video,
mm.
streaming video, and how do brands best figure out their marketing plan in order to influence different audiences. So that's been a fun one that we've tackled in a lot of different ways.
And we'll talk about that in a bit. I'd love to ask you more about that. We'll definitely want to go down that rabbit hole. But, I'm curious. It seems to me, you work with really big brands, right? Some of these brands have been around for decades. And you would think that they would know everything about their audience, but the goalposts are always being moved, right? And they're always relearning about their audience. Is that right?
Yeah, and audience preferences change. So
Yeah,
many, you know, society changes. We've done
true.
research around like what values matter to people, um what do they expect from brands. And in my previous life of, working client side, this is research I've tackled, and there was a, set of priorities and set of um issue like social justice issues that were important to people, and we're actually
Mm,
seeing that shift now, only 5 years later, that's changed. So then
mm,
when a brand is thinking about how did they, if should they be taking a stand on certain issues, or should they be representing themselves in a different way, you have to constantly research these things. Otherwise, you're not keeping up with the changing in public, opinion and
yeah,
attitudes.
true. It's interesting that, isn't it? Um, I mean, as a side question, we've been told for, I don't know, 10, 20 years that I've worked in marketing, really, and most of the 25 years that I've worked in marketing, we've been told that increasingly the consumer respects brands who have a purpose.
Yeah.
Is that, do you agree with that? Do you see, is that on the ascendance still?
Yeah, yeah. Particularly with Gen Z, we're seeing that that is quite important, and it needs to be, needs to be authentic in how it's represented from a brand, and it needs to be
Yeah,
more than just performative.
yeah.
So there needs to be actual action taken versus that just being a part of your messaging. Um, so it's been interesting to continue to research that. Like that part hasn't changed, but perhaps what has changed are the issues that are more important to Gen Z versus millennials, Gen X, and that's shifted over time.
Out of interest, what are the issues that are more important today than they were?
Well, we are seeing it depends on the country, and this is something we've studied globally, and
Mm,
we haven't released all the results yet, but we are seeing that there is more of a shift towards some conservative values,
mm,
and that I think we're seeing that reflected, more globally in politics. But part of it is having integrity. So I think what we're seeing is that, especially for Gen Z, which is a population that has spent so much of their time online in public types of forums, whether it's been like, the Twitter, which is now X, or Reddit, or, um, all of these different methods for which people can just share their opinions with the world. And
mm.
growing up feeling that you always have to have a say about something, about any issue, there's this expectation that brands are participating in that as well. And
Oh, I
having
see.
integrity in terms of like being able to go back and look and see that they were consistent in how they messaged that.
So yes, I never really thought about that. So you're saying that to that younger cohort, that younger generation, not having a point of view is odd, and
Exactly. Yes.
basically, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Whether you're a
Yeah.
person or a brand.
Yeah. Not having a public point of view, which,
Interesting.
when I was that age, not really something I thought about too
It
much.
really wasn't, no. Um, that is again, that's just something interesting that you learn, isn't it, from digging into this stuff.
Mm.
So just back to the absolute basics. What are you, if it's not a stupid question, what are your research methods? What are your most common research methods?
Yeah. So we are an entirely custom research firm.
Yeah.
That's which I really like about it, because if we receive a set of questions, hypotheses, business objectives from a brand, we the toolbox becomes endless in terms of, what we're going to do is structure what we think is the best research program to address those questions. And we like to tout to our clients that, we don't necessarily have a shelf of products that we're like
Yeah.
trying to squeeze your questions into. But I would say that, we do a lot of the work we do tends to have multiple phases where we'll typically start with, either synthesizing what is already out there and available from a trend perspective, previous research conducted within the broader marketing world, to try to understand, what are the themes, what are we looking to build upon versus replicate. And then we'll do most likely some kind of deep investigation into the audience,
Mm.
at a more qualitative level. So we might interview people, we might observe people's behaviors. We, follow them around, follow them around the
Literally
store,
like
give
looking
them,
at comments in social and things like that.
yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. Yep. But we'll also, we might do like a focus group or something more traditional like that. We do a fair amount of mobile, what we call mobile ethnographies. So, what I really like about this is that it's something where you can recruit people all over the world. You can, do this in a fairly cost-effective way. But people are so used to, again, speaking their opinions on their phones, that
Mm.
we can have people participate in what we would call like a mission, and over the course of a couple of days or a whole week, we can give them a set of activities which further immerses them in the topic. So, we've done this in the beauty sector, and people who are users of skincare or makeup love to talk about these things. So we'll say, you know, walk us through your skincare routine, and we will
Right.
get these amazing, I mean, it looks like a, influencer video. It's like, okay, well,
Mm.
step one, I do this and then I do that. And this is why I use this product. And they'll like show us the product and all these things. So that's always a great phase for us to even just get a sense of the language that people are using,
Yeah.
and some of the the themes, the focus areas, so that when we want to then quantify it and make it truly actionable for decision making, we know we're asking the right questions and we're structuring the questions in a way that is going to lead to learnings that can be actioned on and lead to positive change addressing those business objectives. So, one other thing we noticed, and as we said earlier with like the Freakonomics part of it, is that people are don't always do what they say. So
Yeah.
for a lot of our research, we'll think about other methods that can go a little bit deeper than the surface, whether it's having people respond to things very quickly so we can get at their subconscious, thoughts and emotions, or applying neuroscience techniques. So those are always fun to do, a little bit more costly, but really
Give
get
me an
to the
example of that.
deeper
Give me an
emotion.
example of a common type of question where people give the answer they think you want, not what they actually think.
Well, purchase intent is one where if we ask people, would you buy this product? They might say, sure, like I might buy it, but will they
Mm.
actually buy it? We don't,
Right.
unlikely.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're all sort of primed to try and just appease and say the easiest things sometimes, aren't we? Where
Hmm.
so okay, and what's an example of how you might bypass that and get to the truth somehow?
Hmm. Uh, well, from a neuroscience perspective, we use a method called immersion, and it's looking at one's variable heart rate, and that's actually linked
Wow.
to the release of oxytocin in your bloodstream. So when
Wow.
that's happening, your brain is actually, whatever stimuli they're coming across, so whatever imagery or video, whatever we're having them interact with, if they are having an elevated variable heart rate, then it is telling us that they are encoding whatever they're seeing into their memory and they want to come back to it later. And we've actually done, there's been academic research to show a linkage between these elevated scores and actual sales for products and actual purchase. and
Wow.
true decision making link there. So that's one of the ways we can go below the surface. We can show people different advertising or messaging, or actually have them, you know, shop in a store at shelf and see which products are actually leading to these higher levels of immersion.
Wow. And you're actually literally sending them into a store wearing something that measures their heart rate.
Yeah, and it could be on a smartwatch, which is great. That
Oh,
made
yeah.
it very easy, especially during the pandemic when we couldn't bring people
Yeah.
into like laboratory environments. We could do it all virtually.
Yeah.
But even in a store, we could put a GoPro on somebody so we can see what they're looking at, or we can have them wear like eye recording glasses or something like
Yeah.
that. And then they're wearing their smartwatch, and the smartwatch is capturing all that information, or we can give them like a device to wear around their arm. But
Wow.
it's very, I guess a lot of the neuroscience research conducted in other types of methods were like putting something on their head, or they're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
hooked up to all, you can't really have people move about all too much. So
Well, yeah,
it's
because you
pretty
need
cool.
to keep it natural. Because again, then you might have the same problem of like, oh my God, I'm wearing all this gear and I'm not even, and then the person isn't acting like they would on a normal shopping trip or when
Exactly.
looking at a normal website or something. So
Yeah.
I get that. Very interesting. So you did mention qualitative data and
Yeah.
quantitative data. Just give me your take on the difference between those and
Hmm.
then, the sort of strengths and weaknesses of those and how you collect them.
Yeah. Yeah. So qualitative, I like to think of it as like getting to the why, getting to the deeper context.
Mm,
And it's tends to be less structured, right? We don't necessarily have a set of questions with dis- determined answers that people are responding to, but instead we are looking at much smaller groups, much smaller sample sizes, as we like to call it, so a smaller number of people for
mm,
the research, because it is more time consuming. So that's kind of a drawback of it. And it is can be more costly if we try to do this against a much larger group of people. So part of the drawback of it as well is that it's not going to be something that you can say is representative of that audience that you're measuring, of the entire population. But what it does do is it illuminates, because you're not being structured, and you're, let's say, just interviewing somebody about I'm trying to think of something we recently did. You're interviewing somebody about their how they make decisions about laptops and phones or something like that,
mm.
and how they think about products and how they shop. So, if we don't know specifically what we want to ask in a structured survey, that will give us a sense of what are the priorities. And then we can move on to a quantitative phase where we actually know what those priorities are, because we learned that in a qualitative
Got
phase.
you.
And we have that list, and we have that list in a language that is consumer, like it's friendly for that
Mm,
audience, right? We don't want to be using too much jargon or something that's like not worded correctly. So qualitative can be quite critical if we don't if we're not able to go deeper and illuminate. Then sometimes our quantitative research ends up not bearing, the fruit that we expect from it, because
yeah.
we didn't ask the questions correctly.
Yeah.
And quantitative has immense benefits in that when we're doing a survey, a lot of quantitative research tends to be survey research,
Mm,
but we can survey thousands of people over a pretty short period of time, and it can be very cost effective.
yeah.
And that you can then say is represent, if we collect it correctly and truly ensure that it's representative in terms of the subsets of that population, you could actually say, X% of millennials agree that, whatever we're looking at.
Yeah.
So that leads to real ability to make decisions as a business when you can project it out in that way. But again, the drawback of
Mm,
quantitative can be that if you don't ask the questions correctly, if you make the survey too long and people get tired,
mm.
so many pitfalls that you would need to avoid in order to get it right.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, that, isn't it? So the qualitative, this anecdotal information, like you say, interviews and the sort of messy, noisy stuff, is a great discovery phase, isn't it? It's a way for you
Yeah.
to work out what's in people's heads, how are they actually phrasing it and talking about it, and how
Hmm.
can that inspire some of the more quantitative questions we can ask them at scale, but that all fits neatly in a spreadsheet in a way that the anecdotal qualitative stuff does not. And yeah, you can ask 10,000 people a question. You can do that very cheaply and quickly. That's interesting. I suppose though, what one of the key ways that I use things like ChatGPT is to wade through huge volumes of messy, unstructured information.
Yeah.
And so, do you think is that helping with larger qualitative studies at all?
It actually is. Yes, that is the primary way that we're using AI right now within
Mm,
our organization. Obviously, it needs to be tools in which are, AI tools that are closed in terms of we're not feeding it information that can then be used elsewhere. Like we
yeah,
want
of
to
course.
protect our clients' privacy,
Mm,
but we can upload things like transcripts. So, the actual entire discussion that's taking place, if it's a focus group or an interview,
yeah,
we can upload a set of videos where people, if we ask someone a question, we have them talk about something, we can upload the transcripts from that. All of this qualitative, unstructured, messy data, as you were saying, we can put into a tool and it will identify for us. And just it's a great way to get things started. It really does help cut
yeah,
down on that analysis time. And honestly, like one of the drawbacks of qualitative research can be the time that it takes to analyze.
mm,
And so we that's part of why we tend to say, okay, we can only look at 12 people, 24 people, 36 people, and we don't want to go much further than that. But now, uh, because we can get to this analysis so much quicker, that is allowing us to actually, I wouldn't say go from qual to quant unstructured, but to
no,
do even more qualitative interviews, which is great. And then,
mm,
what we'll do, what some of these tools can do is after it identifies a theme, it could take us back to the quotes. So then we can verify, validate that,
yeah.
pull out any nuance that maybe wasn't quite picked up by the AI tools that we're using. So it's been massively helpful for the team.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, a lot of us are using it in that way, in our own
Mhm,
way. And aside
mhm.
from things like these, closed, secure AI systems, what's in your sort of toolkit? What kind of research tools are you opening most days, if indeed you do?
Yeah. So for me, at, within my day to day, we're as an organization, we see ourselves as consultants and storytellers. So,
Mm,
um, what I'm working with the team to do is to elevate the actual work. So it ends up being a lot of the kind of document based programs. Um, we'll have the team working in a tool called SPSS, Displayer, Decipher. These are all quantitative data set analysis tools. So it allows
mm,
us to, almost like cross tabulate the intersection of one, let's say, audience and a set of questions that they answered, or combining different responses, people who say that they, want to purchase this product and have purchased a competitor in the past. What
mm,
do they look like in terms of their attitudes and opinions or something like that? So that allows them to do all of those different things. But when it gets to me, I'm looking at all of they're giving me all of the learnings, let's say in a spreadsheet
yeah,
program, and I'm putting that into maybe more of a word program to, okay, how does the story coming together? How are we addressing all of the objectives of the research program? How are we addressing the business needs and providing a list of here are the things that you should be doing as a business to address those challenges. Um,
yeah. Because
so
you've got to
yeah,
make it actionable, right? You can't just tell them a load of interesting facts. It's got to be
Exactly.
a bit of the so what in there, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, I noticed just looking through what you're up to on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
that you partner with Snap, the holding company of Snapchat, where you also used to work,
Yeah.
quite a bit on research. I'm interested in just in general how you collaborate with platforms that I assume have access to data, and that's why you partner with them. But anyway, what does that look like when you partner with someone like Snap, and what's the value that you get from that?
Yeah. So, well, Snap is a really special client of ours. They've been working with alter agents since 2020 or maybe 2019. And I, at that time, I was working at Snapchat, so that's correct. I was a client of alter agents before coming over here.
Ah,
Um, yeah, so, I'm going to say that they're awesome to work with because I'm a bit biased. Have that opinion, but they're a tech company, and a lot of the tech partners or platform partners that we work with, um, they're heavily used throughout the world. Snapchat is also a for a lot of younger generations. It could be a replacement for messaging. People are
yeah.
just snapping with each other instead of
Mm,
texting. So it really gives us a finger on the pulse of trends and identifying future behaviors that will impact marketing decisions. So, when Snap comes to us with things that they want to research and question, that's of broader interest um, to us as well about how populations are shifting, priorities are
yeah.
shifting, values are shifting, and media habits. But a lot of the work that we do, not all of the work that we do with platforms, but some of it is to support those platforms on their advertising and like monetization goals.
Mm,
So what they're trying to understand are how do the relationships that people have with these different platforms, these different types of media, whether it be streaming, social media, gaming, how does that relationship or the ingoing motivations, why does somebody open up an app? Why does somebody decide to play a game? Why does somebody decide that they're going to sit down and stream something? And why do they go to that partner? Do those have do those kind of unique motivations and needs have a impact on or a relationship to how advertising might be received? And could that provide then guidance to marketers about this is the best way to message to people using the platform in that moment?
mm,
And these are the best times to activate marketing on these platforms. So that's what we try to help those platforms understand and start to pull apart, right? Because to just go to a marketer and say, everybody is using everybody's using this platform and they love it and advertising performs really well. It's like they're hearing that from every angle, right? So
yeah.
as a brand, it's like, okay, but what is the unique special, connection that might actually help drive my marketing objectives as a brand?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what is different about each? How can I activate on all these platforms in different ways in order to ultimately deliver on my business objectives? So that's what we try to help them with.
Right. So maybe I'm thinking I might have seen the ultimate result of that kind of work. When
Mm-hmm.
people platforms like Snapchat, Pinterest, Meta, etc., they'll publish reports into trends, content behaviors, Gen Z behavior, things like that, and send them to people like me. Their business facing customers. Is that the kind of stuff that it ends up turning into essentially?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we do a fair
Yeah.
amount of thought leadership with platforms that offer advertising to, yeah, help better educate
Yeah.
marketers,
Brilliant.
B2B. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really interesting. That. And so I suppose you, as a researcher, again, you must learn so much. We don't get access to that kind of information. We don't get to partner with these massive platforms. So you yourself will learn a lot from that, right?
Yeah, I had worked at, as I mentioned, I worked at Snapchat. I also worked at Twitter. And when you're
Yeah.
inside of these organizations, you become so immersed and deeply understanding of all the nuances of that platform. You really like relate to and understand the audience using the platform, the purpose of these companies, of these products. They all have such a deep, rich cultures. And
Yeah.
as a researcher, you have many different stakeholders that you're engaging with, and you can wrap your head around all the different priorities. And so that lends to a quite a valuable approach that one would take within the organization. But once you're outside of the organization and kind of in a role that I'm in now, after having been on that side, it's interesting to, I don't necessarily have the level of depth that I would have if I worked inside of these organizations, but I have the breadth across all of these
Well,
organizations of
that's
like
it. I mean,
what are the bigger trends.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've made that leap that lots of us make in our career, going from essentially client side to agency side. I mean, yours is a
Hmm.
very specific version of that because you're in market research, not necessarily ad agency kind of agency, but still, I can imagine similar kind of mechanics and dynamics going on there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't get to just focus on that one company that you work for, but at the same time, you get the breadth of experience. But just, I'm curious, what are the other differences you've noticed hopping from client side to agency side?
Ah, good question. Well, what's interesting about this organization, Ultra Agents, we're so small. I've never worked
Mm,
anywhere that is 25 people. Everywhere I've worked is 2,500 plus people.
yeah.
So there's a lot less of the, I would say, internal navigation of like, is this person doing the same job as me? I found like there was a lot of that happening working client side where you you do need to almost advocate for yourself as a researcher. You need to create deep partnerships with people in other roles or other groups. You kind of need to find, who are the people that are going to be most influential and help bring the work that I'm doing to light, and also ensure that company decisions are being made based on these learnings. So
Mm,
that's quite different. I guess I do that more externally now, right? So in on the agency side, it's more about building deep relationships with our clients and our customers, and
yeah.
convincing them to come back to us for more work. So it's a little bit different, but maybe more similar than I think.
No, it is very different. You're right. I've done that exact same thing as you, and it is very different. You go from navigating this huge global infrastructure to navigating all these external relationships, but those relationships are a bit more pressurized because you know that, you know, when you have a client, you are always at risk of losing the client, however
Yeah,
great the relationship, or at least you feel that pressure to really keep them happy. And so, but I think that's good. I think that keeps you on your A game as well, right?
definitely. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a different dynamic, and I always think of this industry as, I always tell, especially when I'm mentoring people who are newer, that
Hmm.
it's a really small, and you never know who's going to
Oh,
end up being your boss one day, who's going to end up being your client one day. So when I was a client, I mean, they hired me here, so I had to be an okay was a client of Alter Agents. But um, yeah, just always, there's definitely a power dynamic involved where, if you're brand side, you will have more of that power. You're holding the purse strings, you're,
oh
making the
yeah,
decisions on who to work with. And so, but even when I was in that role, I was really kind to all my supplier partners and everybody on the agency side that I worked with, because
nice.
I knew that one day it could be the tables are flipped, which they are. So
That's absolutely right. No, you are right. I
yeah.
mean, again, I'm over 20 years into this, and I still bump into people that know someone I worked with 20 years ago or something. And yeah, it's a smaller world than you think, especially now that everybody's connected by 2 or 3 degrees of separation on LinkedIn. So,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and particularly what you're talking about, be a good client because yeah, you might want a job at that agency one day. And just to, I'd love to have a little chat about your career because yeah, you've worked at some really interesting places like New York Magazine, Universal
Mhm.
McCann, Twitter as it
Mhm.
was, Kantar, one of the big well-known
Yeah.
research consultancies, I guess, Snap, and now Alter Agents. So you've really kind of worked some interesting places. What have you learned? I know this is asking you a lot to distill all that, but what have you learned along the way? What are some of the more interesting things you've learned along the way?
Yeah. I I have jumped around quite a bit, and uh, it's been it's been a fun journey so far. I think that there's a couple of things that I've learned very early on in my career. When I started working, I was working at Universal McCann. I worked at Media Edge, so that was part of Group M. Universal McCann's part of
Mm,
IPG. So I worked on the media ad agency side as a researcher, and uh, I one of the life changing moments or career changing moments was that I noticed that I was spending a lot of time online, digital. This because almost 20 years ago, and we weren't doing any research on online advertising at all. All of our
yeah.
research was TV advertising, magazine advertising, all of those things. And I decided that, I went to my manager and said, I think we should be doing something here. My manager was like, okay, well, if you want to do that on your own time, go for it. And so I started reaching out to, everybody that worked on the online advertising, online media buying part of the business and said, hey, like if you're hearing from your partners, if you're hearing from the platforms or the online um, publishers that they're offering research, bring me into the conversation. I want to make sure that we're doing this in a way where we could holistically look at your online media plan and make decisions. And doing that really changed my career. I started, within the agency publishing point of views on
Mm,
different types of research measurement as it relates to online and digital. I started participating in all of these different boards and things like that. And it obviously, you know, 80% of budgets now, a large percent of budgets are going to online advertising. So
mm,
I made the right choice in terms of focusing there, but that completely, launched my career. So I think a learning for me has always been um, if you see a gap, fill that gap and
mm,
um, don't ignore that. Like if you see your own habits as a person are shifting and you see an opportunity for what that might mean for the larger, the larger business world, that's an opportunity and take that opportunity. And
yeah.
that's definitely led me in the right direction. Um, and then, the other thing that has really been influential in my career is now that I guess I have a little bit of perspective looking back, is that um, to reflect on every job that I've had. Anytime I'm making that shift or I feel antsy, like this isn't working out for me, I start to reflect and I build like a quadrant where I say, like, what are the elements of like the perfect job for me? What are the elements of the worst job for me? And then that kind of leads into this more exploration of like, where do I want to go?
Mm,
And what I've learned about myself is that um, I love managing people. I love mentoring people. Um, and I love doing research. And that's challenging because you can go from certain roles. So, for example, when I
mm,
went from Twitter, where I was managing a global team, but a small team, and I was delegating a lot of work, but I was still guiding the research and involved in the research. Then I went to Kantar. Kantar is a massive research agency, a research organization. And I was overseeing a team of, 70 people across North America.
wow.
And uh, it was a great experience, but I wasn't involved in the research at all. And it was a very much a like off the shelf type of research product.
Mm,
So it was more of a routine, very consistent way of the work being done. So I did not feel like I was personally like scratching my itch of
mm,
curiosity about people and insights. So once I realized that, it became pretty clear to me that it was time to, find that right fit and not always just jumping to the thing that seems, shiny or seems like it's going to give you the most financial payoff, but really playing the long game of is this meeting my, job satisfaction priorities? And for me, it's being able to be close to the research, pursue insights and curiosity about people, but also mentor others and manage others.
That's interesting. That I mean, I think I've spoken to other people on this podcast about that tension between one, doing the thing that you love. You get into any job because you love doing the thing, but then as you become more senior, it becomes about managing people who do the thing, and you're not doing the thing anymore. But that's what you loved about it in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, and so, are you saying that you've? I mean, I suppose that's one thing about working at a smaller company. I definitely know other people who've done that as a way to stay quite close to the work whilst also managing people. Is that the kind of balance you think you've found?
Yeah, yeah. And and that's something we're going to have to think about as we grow our company at Alter
Yeah.
Agents. But right now, part of what we promise to our clients is that they're going to have involvement from, one of our executives. And I touch just about every research project that we work on to some
Mm.
extent. Now we have extreme, like our team is amazing. Our directors are brilliant and great at the work that they do. So my involvement isn't necessarily, though from time to time when we need a set of hands, I'm there conducting the interviews or,
Mm.
doing the analysis. But for the most part, no, I'm not like doing the analysis, but I'm guiding and helping to elevate the work. Okay, how you told the story in a fantastic way. How do we go a little bit further and kind of like pushing them?
Yeah.
And for me, that's really fulfilling.
Why do you enjoy managing people?
Um, I don't know. I'm very much a person who's like driven by accomplishments. And I'm also very much a relationship driven person. We just did a whole strengths finder exercise, which I highly recommend for people. But one of my strengths is I'm a relator. So I really do enjoy the one-on-one and being able to see someone, or especially earlier on in their career, and when they get excited about something, you see the passion. It's like,
Mm.
because I've lived that and I've been there. I love to be able to cultivate that with people and get it out of them and give them that opportunity to grow. And it's just so satisfying. It feels like such an accomplishment when you see,
Mm.
their accomplishments become your accomplishments in a small way. And
True.
yeah, I guess like it just goes back to my curiosity about people and my love for people.
Yeah, true. That's
Yeah.
clear. That is very clear. That comes through. I can't say I particularly love managing people. It's funny. So I'm always interested in people that enjoy that because I think of the downsides of it. The trying to motivate people, push
Yeah.
them more, and maybe when they don't always want to do what you want to do, or they can't do things quite to your standard. That I find that hard about
Yeah.
delegating. You kind of want to just get involved and go, no, you do it like this. So
Yeah.
my hat is very much off to you for being good at that because I think it's a really amazing set of skills. So just thinking ahead, to the future a bit before we let you go. Um, how do you think market research is going to be disrupted in the very near future? AI is obviously a big part of that, but do you think there's any other factors?
Yeah. I mean, AI is definitely going to be, and already is, a big part of that.
Mm.
Where I'm heading to a conference tomorrow, and I would have to guess that more than half of the topics are covering AI in one
Yeah.
way or another. There's lots of research companies now that are offering AI as their core, part of their core product. And we're even seeing things like the term synthetic samples. So using
Mm.
AI as the as the survey takers, as the research participants, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I don't
I bet that
I
one
worry
divides opinion.
it divides opinion, and I tend to lean on I really believe in humans, and humans are complex, and I don't know that AI is really able to get us there yet. I think
No.
if we're looking at synthesizing historical trends and then using that to help predict future trends, possibly, but to
But it's not going to
people,
surprise
people
you
always
in the same
surprise
way.
me.
No.
Exactly. People always surprise me, and I don't think AI will be able to do that and to, research things that we don't yet know where it's going to, where it's going to go. So,
But what about the
yeah.
narrative in your world about AI taking your jobs?
Yeah. Uh, I mean, again, that's part of what I love about Alter Agents is that like deep and core to our mission are people and like
Yeah.
caring
Yeah.
about humans in terms of our research participants, in terms of our employees, our clients. That's central to the work we do. And, will AI help our tasks? Like, yeah, we're seeing that already. That's giving more brain power to our researchers, rather than being focused on, let's say, data synthesis tasks and things that perhaps don't require deep thinking. Now they have time for more time
Yeah.
for deep thinking. That would be the goal. And then the way that we're telling stories will be even more valuable and even better for our clients. So I'm excited to see where that goes in terms of giving us a more powerful toolkit to work with.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Same. Well, it's nearly our time is over, Heather. A shame to say that.
Oh,
Before you go, I would love sort you can so it's okay to repeat yourself if that's appropriate, but I'd love to sort of in some way distill what's kind of bouncing around in your head right now. Think of our listener, right? Think of our listener they've listened to the importance of insights, the importance of learning about your audience. Just give them a handful of tips, quite practical tips if you can think of them. Maybe questions to ask or ways to even work those questions out. Just a starting point of a few things that someone could do right now to get inside the heads more effectively of the people that they want to market to. What would you say to them?
mm,
Where would you start?
yeah. Um, Let people talk. People love to talk.
True.
So if you really want to get inside people's heads, don't, yeah, especially, don't guide them too much. Don't lead them too much. Let them talk. And if someone says something, let it breathe. And you might want to ask, "Ooh, tell me more about that. I'm interested in that." And you'll be surprised where it goes. So that's always the fun part about doing this work is that we we go in with a set of hypotheses, and that's really important, right? You always want to
Hmm.
take a moment to think about, okay, what are the things I expect to learn from this research? But don't let that constrain your research either, because what you might miss are really big unknowns that will impact your work massively. Um, so being opening your eyes wide enough or opening the aperture wide enough to
Yeah.
go further past those things that you're focused on and discover the delightful things that maybe you aren't even setting out to understand.
Yes. Yeah. True. Let them just give people time and space, right, to just open up and spill the unexpected out onto you. Tell me this: what commonly obsessed over metric would you just get rid of and scrap altogether if you could?
Okay, I love this question. Yeah, because my career actually started out more on the measurement side, and there's a lot of opportunity for growth there, but I just love understanding people so much that I've moved away from measurement more towards insights. And part of that is the metric of clicks and
Oh,
direct direct response measurement. I would just throw clicks in the garbage, like if I could, because I think
thank you.
they've, really gained more meaning over the years. And I've just seen this through my measurement career that it's just an over use and abuse of clicks as a decision making tool. And clicks don't necessarily drive, like, they don't necessarily represent that this is a new opportunity or that somebody saw this ad and now they're going to make this purchase off of this one exposure. And I think that the industry has generally accepted that, but they're still putting dollars based on those, that last click. And I really think that leads to, erosion of brands, and it's impacting the growth and longevity of brands because they focus so much on the lower funnel, the direct response and clicks, and kind of like big data in the online advertising world being part of that. So even though I started my career with this focus on online advertising and measurement, uh, the whole over focus on clicks has kind of turned me off from it.
That's very interesting. I fully agree with you. I think, well, certainly in my own way, I hate the over obsession with clicks. Partly because, for me, if you just optimize for that, then all you're doing is running performance marketing, right? Is that your kind of worry as well?
Yeah, and you're not looking at audiences that maybe don't know about your brand yet.
True. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're just putting dollars against the people that maybe would have converted already,
Mm.
and just getting them to convert sooner or something like that. But you're missing the bigger picture of researching who are the people that are the next, audience that we should be expanding towards,
Mm.
or what are the ways to get people to consider the brand beyond, like, showing them that one ad and is not, and getting them to click, like, that's not the end all be all of, the
So
full way that
one-dimensional.
people make decisions. Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, it winds me up because my background is in a lot of social media marketing, and it always has wound me up, the obsession over clicks, and that's just
Hmm.
not why we do what we do, particularly in social. But
Yeah.
that's very, very interesting. That. Well, look, it's been really interesting talking to you, Heather. I really appreciate you giving us your time coming on the show. We've learnt a lot from you. If people want to find and connect with you online, where should they go?
Yeah. Feel free to check us out at alteragents.com. There's a, ability to request more information and have a conversation with us. What I love to say is that we're a bunch of nerds and we
Oh,
love to brainstorm on research projects, and we don't charge for that. So if you wanted to connect with us, we love to be connected to more researchers because it is a small, or, to marketers, it is a
cool.
small industry. So feel free to reach out and check us out.
We will do. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This has been so fun.
Thanks, Heather. Really appreciate it.